This episode is scripted by John Ruths and Newell Fisher and is narrated, recorded and edited by Newell Fisher. Hello and welcome to the Watership Down podcast episode 46, in which we will be going through chapter 44, a message from El-ahrairah. First, a bit of barrow keeping. I have posted a picture of Campion as a hero in the 1999 TV series by Maple_Road on Instagram, on the podcast page and Watership Down fan groups, and this got a really good response. His character development in that series is one of its real high points. In order to achieve this, Vervain bears nearly all of the non-Woundwort villainy, with Campion starting out as loyal but misguided. Anyway, check it out, as well as Maple Road's other pictures on Instagram. That's Maple_Road on Instagram. Chapter 44. A message from El-ahrairah. The pre-chapter quote is from a fairly well-known book about crusader castles, so not normal European castles, but those built or occupied mostly in the Middle East. The quote clearly lines up with what's going on at Watership Down. As our heroes have essentially dug themselves in, they're kind of stuck listening to the activities above. It's simply demoralising, and the sounds of digging and scratching line up well with the, quote, muffled thud of the picks above, end quote, from the quote. It is interesting that what is happening is being compared to the Crusades. It's a fair comparison. To some extent, the Crusades were a conflict of existence, but also very much of ideology, where the fight was taken to the enemy's home. Each side was very determined. The rabbits of Watership Down struck Efrafan using deception and espionage, taking away does as treasure. Efrafan is now striking back in kind by attempting to dig into Watership Down. Yet another uncannily well-chosen pre-chapter quote by Richard Adams. The chapter opens after the passage of some time from the end of the previous chapter, with the Efrafan attack on Watership Down having started. Speedwell is reporting to Hazel-rah that he no longer hears the sounds of digging. We then switch and get the point of view of the Efrafans, who are surprised to see how many holes there are at this warren. From a military perspective, General Woundwort explains that this is foolish and leaves the warren vulnerable. However, it has an unsettling effect on the Efrafans. They are in the open. They are far away from their home. Rabbits may counter-attack out of these many holes, and let's not forget about the great white bird. Woundwort counters his unsettled rabbits with his own brand of logic. The Watership Down rabbits have left themselves open to attack with so many holes, rather than the other way round, and are not in a position of dominance. The Efrafans still have the advantage of this at this moment, but things seem rather tenuous. The idea of having inexperienced rabbits on this expedition and leaving the more experienced to mind things at home may not seem like a great idea about now. Vervain is starting to stand out as a rabbit who is used to being the bully at home rather than the bully far away. Only Campion and Groundsel seem to be holding up well. Two of Vervain's rabbits meet with the stalwart Silver and the oft-wounded Buckthorn underground and are lucky to get away with their lives. They won't be motivated diggers. Trying to set the example, Groundsel digs his way in only to meet Blackavar, who, much like Silver and Buckthorn, comes out on top. The descriptions of the altered conditions and advantages of close quarters combat in a narrow run are fascinating. Blackavar is the smaller rabbit, but a good holding bite and knowing when to let go are all he needs to drive the larger rabbit back injured. It occurs to Woundwort that this is proving to be a tough situation. Just as there are some clear morale issues with the Efrafans, it's clear that Woundwort sees this for exactly what it is. After the embarrassment and loss of prestige, Woundwort has good reason for wanting a fighting victory in this situation. Woundwort discusses things with Campion, who has advocated starving the Watership Down rabbits out. This is rejected because of the risk of staying on open downland for the time needed, which not many rabbits could handle as well as Campion. Determined to have a fighting victory, Woundwort wishes to draw upon the past successes at Nutley Copse, the last warren the Efrafans successfully attacked. Interestingly, the now dead Captain Mallow was key to success at that raid. They find another rabbit, Ragwort, who is also on that mission. Unfortunately, Ragwort is about as smart as one of the bricks that make up the shapes at the warren of the snares. Woundwort learns what he has to, though. To make this work, the Efrafans will have to dig their way in straight down. Hazel and his companions hear digging resume, and note that it's in two places. Hazel talks to Blackberry, who does not have an optimistic outlook. Hazel-rah also shows her sense and leadership by keeping Thethuthenang from giving in to panic. Bigwig speaks to Hazel somewhat privately. He tells him that they're not finished yet. At this moment he may be the only optimistic rabbit underground. Hazel is impressed with Bigwig's seeming to look forward to the fight with the Efrafans. They discuss their defensive scheme with Silver and Holly, sending Speedwell off to listen again. Hazel himself listens for a bit and realises that the Efrafans have stopped digging at one point. It means they're slowly figuring out the best way to get into the warren. Fiver is also listening, but not to the omnipresent sound of the digging, but to those that only a rabbit such as Fiver can hear. He's dropping off into some sort of stupor, but he first makes a fearful, unnatural sound and speaks sentences that strike fear into our heroes, as well as unsettling the attacking Efrafans, we later learn. He is that loud. In the 1978 film, this effect on the Efrafan diggers is shown immediately to save time. Interestingly, Fiver shouts at dirty little beasts during his vision, and this is a term that Woundwort has used towards Bigwig, who also later used the phrase to refer to the Owlslaffer member who he fatally injured during the escape from Efrafan. But the last use of the phrase, of course, was by the book's only talking dog, Roused in the recently told tale of El-ahrairah. Suddenly, that chapter of comic relief takes on a more ominous meaning. Were Fiver to be faking his psychic abilities, as we know he is not, that story would have been an obvious source for the idea he is about to implant in Hazel's head. For while Fiver now lies unable to be roused, Hazel's mind is processing things, and it seems like he too has a vision. This one goes back to their departure from Sandalford and repeats the phrase, quote, "There's a large dog loose in the wood," end quote. Suddenly, Hazel knows what to do. We readers don't yet, and this makes this part very intriguing. In the form of Blackberry and Dandelion, he'll take both brains and speed with him. Hazel's instructions to those that he'll take with him are to get out of the warren, to get away no matter what, and to link up with him at the iron tree at the foot of the scarp slope of the down. He instructs Bigwig to block a run and not to give up. He intimates that El-ahrairah has given him a plan. The plan will involve going, quote, to the farm to gnaw another rope, end quote. This can only mean one thing. Before anything can be discussed, Hazel is off with Blackberry and Dandelion. This is all done very quickly, and we don't even hear a response from Bigwig. It seems that Bigwig, upon hearing from Hazel that El-ahrairah has shown him what to do, is satisfied with this answer. Such is the level of trust he inspires. And with that, Hazel and his two companions are gone. Hazel's vision. Just a couple more thoughts on this chapter from John Ruths that pertain to Hazel's vision. Was it a vision akin to one of Fiver's, or does the trance that Fiver is in at the end of the chapter bring this on to Hazel? The relevant passage is from page 385 in my Kindle edition and begins, quote, "In Hazel's mind, green branches were straining in the wind," end quote. To quote the two possibilities John mentions directly, 1, quote, "It is a vision. Hazel does have a vision of sorts due to what is going on and the fact that Fiver is right next to him in this trance of his. It's almost as if Fiver transfers some of his consciousness to Hazel. But why? In this instance, rapid decision-making and speed are needed. Plus, the rabbits are crowded underground. There is no place for Fiver and Hazel to get off to in order for Fiver to explain a vision of his. What is needed is the ability to transfer some thoughts of his directly to Hazel," end quote. Or 2, quote, "It is not a vision, but rather Hazel's intuitiveness. We all know that Hazel is intelligent. He's not as smart as Blackberry, but what he really has is another kind of intelligence, much like what we humans call emotional intelligence, where he takes in all inputs versus solving a finite problem. Being next to Fiver, Hazel simply gets one of his good ideas. These don't happen all the time, but fairly regularly. Many times Hazel has demonstrated his intelligence and the kind of wisdom he has in him. It's really a part of what makes him the leader he has become," end quote. Now, John has said he inclines to the first, more psychic explanation. What do you think? Next time, we return to Nuthanger Farm, where we meet a dog and a cat.